When my son told me I wouldn't be welcome at his house for Christmas, I smiled, stood up, and walked out like a gentleman. Then I got in my truck, made one phone call, and by New Year's their mortgage payments were cancelled. That was only the opening move. Justice needed to be restored, and arrogance needed a reckoning. You're not going to believe what came next. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and tell us where you're listening from. Your support keeps these stories alive. I could make my famous turkey this year, I said, sinking deeper into the soft leather of Nathan's sofa. The one with sage stuffing your mother adored. She used to say it beat her grandmother's recipe. The words hung in the air, mixing with the faint perfume of Serena's expensive vanilla candles. The living room glowed under the lights of their 12-foot tree, sparkling ornaments, perfectly coordinated ribbons, a magazine spread come to life in Mapleton Hill. Bolder Nathan shifted beside me, his wedding band catching the twinkle lights. Something about his posture changed, shoulders folding inward as if bracing for a hit. Dad, you won't be welcome here for Christmas. It landed like a punch I hadn't seen coming. I blinked, sure I'd misheard. Come again? Why wouldn't I be welcome? He looked everywhere but at me, down at the marble coffee table I'd helped him choose last spring, when Serena declared their old one to start her home. Serena's parents are flying in, he said. They'd prefer if you weren't here, they'd prefer. My hands went cold. They'd prefer, I repeated. And what exactly do they prefer, Nathan? It's just easier this way, Dad. You know how the Parks are about traditions. They have their own way of doing things. His voice shrank with every syllable, like he was retreating into himself. I took in the room, the silk curtains I'd paid for when Serena complained about privacy. The hardwood floors that came off my home equity line, the crown molding that maxed my card because the space needs architecture, Raf. Every inch of this house carried my fingerprints, my sacrifice, my love for my son. Their own way, I said slowly. And what way is that exactly? Dad, please don't make this harder. Through the kitchen archway, Serena's new KitchenAid mixer gleamed, commercial grade, the must-have for a holiday baking phase that fizzled after 3 weeks. $2,000 of my money, used twice since October, I swallowed. And where am I spending Christmas then? Nathan's face crumpled. Maybe Aunt Vivi in Santa Fe? Or we could do something the weekend after. The weekend after. Like Christmas was a dentist appointment to be rescheduled. I rose, my knees protesting the 8 years they'd carried grief and a family's weight. I see. Dad, wait. But I was already moving to the entry, past the gallery wall of family photos where my face got smaller, more distant with each frame, past the closet crammed with Serena's coats, 10 colors of the same down jacket, all non-negotiable. My hand found the doorknob, cool, solid, decisive. Son, I said, not turning. Tell the Parks I said. Feliz Navidad. The December air slapped my cheeks as I walked to the truck. Behind me, Nathan said my name once, then the door clicked shut. Final. Absolute. I sat in the cab with the engine off, watching Christmas lights sparkle in windows of houses where I'd never be invited inside. My phone buzzed, probably Nathan ready to smear soothing words over a knife wound. I didn't answer. I turned the key and drove into the dark, away from the warm glow of the house I'd financed and never truly belonged to. The heater hummed as I idled through familiar streets. Boulder rolled past, Pearl Street store windows, snow-dusted roofs, couples carrying wrapped boxes. Every corner held a memory of the man I used to be, the believer, the one who thought family came first and wallets followed. That man was a fool. At a red light on Broadway and Spruce, a young dad loaded presents into his SUV, while 2 kids fogged the windows with excited breath. Once upon a time, that was Nathan and me, before Serena, before I became an ATM with inconvenient feelings. Numbers started tumbling in my head like a busted slot machine. $2,900 every month for 5 years. My calculator had thrown up its hands last spring when I totaled it. 140-something thousand. More money than Elena and I had tucked away for retirement. Gone, evaporated. The light turned green. My foot pressed too hard. The engine growled like it agreed with me. Pine Street. That's where I'd refinanced our place to cover their down payment. I could still see the loan officer's pity. Mr. Ortiz, are you sure? You're taking a big risk for someone else's investment. Someone else's investment. Not my son's future. Not our family's security, someone else's investment. Walnut, the bank where I signed the second mortgage when Nathan temporarily lost his job 2 years ago. Just until I'm back on my feet, Dad. Serena had stood behind him in a 750 coat, nodding like a diplomat and tallying my desperation in her head. I pulled into my cracked driveway, the one I couldn't afford to fix because every spare dollar went into their pristine fantasy. The porch light flickered. Another repair on the someday list. Inside, the silence pressed in. No Elena's laugh, no clatter of big family dinners. Just the ghost of what our home used to be. My phone rang as I fumbled with my keys, shrill against bare walls. Serena's name flashed on the screen. Perfect. I'd been waiting 5 years for this conversation. I let it ring 4 times. Then I picked up. Raphael, she purred, sweet as syrup, the same voice she used for "Can you cover the property tax?" And the water bill auto draft. Hiccuped. "I heard about the little misunderstanding with Nathan," she said. Misunderstanding? I leaned against the counter, coat still on. No misunderstanding, Serena. You made yourself clear. Look, my parents are very traditional. They expect a certain atmosphere for the holidays. A certain atmosphere, I echoed. And what atmosphere is that? Rustling, shopping bags. I pictured her on the quartz island I'd paid for. They're not used to your kind of cooking. All that spicy food. The loud music and, well, they're educated people. They expect conversation, current events, literature, art. 8 years of swallowing it. The looks, the digs, the way she treated me like the help who never clocks out. My kind of cooking. You mean the food you ate every Sunday for 3 years when money was tight? I asked. The tamales you said tasted like your grandmother's? That was different. We were appreciative then. But with my parents, so now you can't have the Mexican peasant embarrassing you at your elegant table. Her sweetness cracked. Don't be dramatic, Raphael. This isn't about race. It's about class. My father graduated summa cum laude. My mother speaks 4 languages. They summer in Nantucket. What would you contribute? Stories about laying tile? Heat crawled up my neck, but my voice stayed level. I built a company from nothing after Elena died. I've put more people to work than your father has mentored in his life. I've paid more in taxes than his best year. Money isn't everything, she sniffed. Breeding matters. Education matters. Elena understood her place better than you do. Silence. She'd stepped over a line I hadn't even known I'd drawn. What did you say about my wife? I'm saying she blended better. She didn't make waves. She knew some rooms weren't meant for her. My grip on the phone went white. Elena had more class in her little finger than your bloodline could buy. Oh, please. She was a house cleaner who got lucky. At least she had the sense to be quiet. Serena, I said, my voice something low and new. Listen closely. We're done pretending. This conversation is over. We're not family. You can't just... We're done. I hung up. I set the phone down gently. The kitchen felt smaller and cleaner at once, like the air had finally cleared. I went to my desk and pulled out the manila folder I'd avoided for months. Bank statements, mortgage papers, 5 years of automatic transfers that bled me dry while they played host. Time to stop the bleeding. The documents spread across the table like exhibits in a trial. Every 15th of the month, $2,900 vanishing into their mortgage. I added, first year $34,800, second, another $34,800. Third, no new clothes for me. Fourth, discount groceries. Fifth, peanut butter lunches to make the math work. $145,000 plus, not counting the down payment. Not counting roof repairs, not counting furniture that was essential to the aesthetic. I stared until the figures blurred. Elena's insurance money, our retirement, the grandkids' college fund we'd dreamed about, poured into a house that refused me a chair at the table. I picked up the phone and called the bank. Customer service, this is Jennifer. How can I help you? I need to cancel an automatic transfer. Of course, sir. Account number and verification? I rattled them off. No judgment in her voice. Just keys clicking and a line of data on a screen. I see a $2,900 monthly transfer to Wells Fargo, account ending in 7423. How long has this been active, Mr. Ortiz? 5 years. And you want it cancelled effective immediately? I looked around at my chipped counters, outdated stove, paint that needed refreshing, the home projects I'd deferred to bankroll someone else's dream. Effective immediately, I said. Done. The transfer is cancelled. Anything else I can help with? No, I said, and felt the word land like a solid, satisfying door latch. That's everything. Outside, night fell soft over Boulder. Through 100 windows, families gathered without needing anyone's permission to belong. For the first time in 5 years, next month's budget would make sense. For the first time since Eleanor died, I could fix that porch light, buy good groceries, maybe even take a road trip. I stacked the statements, the mortgage papers, the receipts. Then I lit a match in the fireplace and watched 5 years of martyrdom curl to ash. Warmth kissed my face. My phone buzzed, probably Nathan's apology or Serena's next urgent necessity. I didn't look. I poured a small glass of the good bourbon I'd been saving for a special occasion that never came. Tonight qualified. To Eleanor, I said to the quiet room, and to the man I refused to stop being. Merry Christmas to me, and I meant it. The next morning cracked open with light streaming through my kitchen windows, sharp and golden. For the first time in years, I wasn't doing math in my head before the day even started. No frantic tallying of what would disappear from my account in 3 days. No panic about how I'd stretch canned beans and rice until the next paycheck. The quiet freedom tasted richer than the Colombian roast in my mug. At exactly 10:43 a.m., my phone buzzed. Serena's name lit the screen like a warning sign. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity won. "Raphael," she said, her voice clipped, like I was late to an appointment. "I need you to pick up my parents at Denver International. Their flight from Portland lands at 2:15. Frontier Airlines, baggage claim 5. I blinked, set my mug down carefully. "Excuse me?" "My parents." "From Portland. They need transportation. You're the only one with time during the day. Did you forget our conversation last night?" My voice stayed even. "This isn't about feelings, Raph," she said, the syrup gone. "It's practical. That's what family does. They help each other. Family." The audacity was something to behold. Yesterday I wasn't welcome for Christmas dinner. Today I was apparently her chauffeur. And why ask me? I pressed. "Because you're not my rival," her tone sharpened. "You're too weak to be my rival. Just do it. Get in your truck and pick them up." Her words stung less than they should have. They revealed everything. In her eyes I was neither family nor enemy, just a tool. "What airline?" I asked, calm. "Frontier Flight 872, Carousel 5. "And, Raphael—" She paused like she was delivering something important. "Wear something decent. That navy blazer you wore to Nathan's graduation. They notice things like that. Don't embarrass us." The line went dead. I set my phone down slowly, staring at the blank screen. 2:15, Carousel 5, Denver International. I glanced at the clock. 10:47, plenty of time, plenty. Instead of grabbing my keys, I poured a second cup of coffee, added an extra spoonful of sugar, pulled out yesterday's crossword. 7 across, delayed gratification, 12 letters. I smiled. The answer would come to me later, at 2:20 p.m. Instead of wrangling luggage at DIA, I was easing into my recliner. A fresh cup of Earl Grey steaming beside me, yesterday's crossword puzzle finished on the table. Postponement. That had been the answer. A neat word for 5 years of my life. The phone buzzed at 2:47. Serena, I let it ring. Buzz again at 3:02. Another at 3:16. By 3:30, I'd brewed more tea, flipped through the sports section, and started organizing the junk drawer. The calls kept stacking, relentless as a wasp trapped in a jar. I ignored them all. At 3:45, a new number flashed. Probably her parents, borrowing a stranger's phone in baggage claim, still waiting for the chauffeur who would never come. I let that one ring, too. By 5 p.m., I'd eaten a grilled cheese sandwich with tomato soup, loaded the dishwasher, and stretched my legs on the couch. The silence tasted better than the meal. Outside, the winter sun melted into long shadows across the neighborhood. Somewhere across town, Serena's parents were negotiating a taxi ride, indignation steaming off them like fog. I smiled into my tea, then the pounding started. Not a knock. A pounding. Fists hammering the door so hard the frame rattled. I set my mug down, stood slowly. Through the peephole, I saw 3 figures clustered on my porch like vultures, faces tight, postures bristling. I opened the door. Cody Park, Serena's father, was first through, red-faced, blustering. "What the hell is wrong with you?" He barked, barging past me like he owned the place. We waited at that goddamn airport 3 hours? His wife, Evelyn, followed, her perfectly coiffed hair a mess, her lips pressed into a line of fury. This is unacceptable behavior for a man of your age, Raphael. Absolutely barbaric. And Serena, trailing behind, her designer coat wrinkled, mascara smeared, eyes blazing. You humiliated us. Do you have any idea what you've done? My parents had to take a taxi. I didn't move from the doorway. My voice was quiet, but it sliced clean. Out of my house, they froze, startled by the steel. Excuse me? Cody's face darkened further. You don't get to make demands here, buddy. Not after today. This is my house, I repeated, and you're not welcome out. Evelyn drew herself tall, dripping contempt. Raphael, you don't understand the magnitude of your mistake. My husband has connections. Business, social, political. You can't treat people like us this way without consequences. This was a lesson, I said evenly, meeting her gaze. A lesson in arrogance. Serena's voice cracked. A lesson? Who do you think you are? I'm the man who stopped being your bank and your driver, I said. The lesson is over. Leave. Cody jabbed a finger at me, his breath hot with rage. You have no idea who you're messing with, old man. I know people, important people. People who can make your life very, very difficult. Is that a threat? I asked quietly. It's a promise, he hissed. Abandoning elderly people at an airport? Dangerous weather conditions. You think there won't be consequences? Dangerous weather. I almost laughed. It had been 52 degrees and sunny. Evelyn's smile cut sharp. Public consequences, Raphael. That's what's coming. Get out, I said, opening the door wide. They filed out, Cody last, turning back with a glare. You'll regret this. I guarantee it. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt with a satisfying click. Their headlights swept across my lawn as they peeled out, still bickering in their car. The house felt lighter, cleaner. But their words lingered. Public consequences, important people, connections. I picked up my tea, still warm, and settled back into my chair. For the first time since this mess started, I felt something close to concern. But stronger than that, anticipation. 3 days later, I was sipping my morning coffee when I saw my own face staring back at me from page 3 of the Boulder Gazette. Headline: Local contractor abandons elderly couple at airport during holiday storm. My hands stilled. My photo, lifted from my company's old website, stared back in black and white. The article dripped with Cody's fingerprints. Cody and Evelyn Park, visiting their daughter for Christmas, were left stranded at Denver International for over 4 hours when family member Rafael Ortiz failed to appear for a prearranged pickup. The couple, both in their 60s, endured frigid conditions as a winter storm warning was issued. Frigid conditions. Winter storm. Lies stacked like bricks. We couldn't believe someone would abandon us like that, Cody was quoted. At our age, in dangerous weather, it's not just inconsiderate, it's unsafe. Below, Evelyn chimed in about my erratic behavior and concerning mental state. Not a whisper about the years of checks, mortgages, and repairs. No mention of the dinner I was banned from. Just me, cast as the villain in their play. I folded the paper, smoothed it flat. My jaw tightened. Cody had pulled strings. Used his bank connections. Planted the story where it would sting most. Smart, I admitted. Very smart. For the first time, I respected my opponents. They weren't just entitled. They were strategic. They wanted war, and war is exactly what they were going to get. For the next 3 days, I lived in a different world. Not the one where I was Rafael Ortiz, the man who let his son's in-laws walk all over him, but the one where I was Rafael Ortiz, builder, strategist, survivor, the man who had clawed his way from nothing and knew how to fight with precision. My dining table became command central. Laptop open, coffee mug scattered, manila folders stacked like ammunition. First tab, Cody Park. Retired bank manager, longtime member of the Boulder Country Club, treasurer of the Front Range Business Association, a man who had lived decades in trust and influence. He loved 2 things, control and reputation. Both could be stripped away. Second tab, Evelyn. Instagram read like a luxury catalogue. Charity luncheons, art galas, ski trips in Aspen. Every post framed with hashtags like a grateful and blessed life. A lifestyle curated on money she never earned and money I had unwillingly funded. Third tab, Serena. Her Facebook was a scrapbook of my contributions. Photos of her beautiful home, with the granite counters I'd paid for, check-ins at fine dining spots during months I covered their utility bills, a smug status last week. So excited to host Christmas dinner with family. Can't wait to show off our home, our hosting skills. My stomach churned. And then Nathan's LinkedIn. That's where the final piece dropped into place. His recent connections included Patricia Monroe, the lifestyle editor at the Boulder Gazette. The same Patricia who had written the hit piece against me. Nathan's polite comments on her posts were still fresh. There it was. Proof of how the story was planted. They hadn't just attacked me, they'd weaponized the press. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the tabs on my screen. They had made 3 fatal mistakes. 1. They underestimated me. 2. They took their fight public. 3. They documented every ounce of their hypocrisy online. And now I had the receipts, literally. I opened a new document and began drafting a timeline. 5 years of support. Bank transfers, receipts, checks. The $47,000 down payment from my home equity loan. Now the $18,000 kitchen renovation Serena swore was essential. The $174,000 in mortgage transfers, month after month. In total, over $250,000, while they sneered at me behind my back. By evening, I had a manila folder so thick it could choke a shredder. Inside were bank statements, receipts, screenshots of Serena's Facebook, boasting about luxuries I'd bankrolled, and of course a clipped copy of the Gazette article. In the margins I wrote notes, lie, false, manipulation. I glanced at my calendar. December 24th circled in red, not because it was Christmas, but because it was the night they planned their dinner party. 12 guests according to Serena's own Facebook event. Friends, colleagues, neighbors. People who read the Gazette. People who believed Cody and Evelyn's version of me. Perfect audience for the truth. Christmas Eve dawned gray and cold. Boulder was wrapped in a quiet stillness, the kind that settles just before snow. I laid out my evidence like a lawyer preparing for trial. Bank statements in chronological order, each mortgage payment highlighted in yellow. Receipts taped together to show continuity. Photos from Serena's Instagram paired with dates from my credit card bills. And finally, the Gazette article, annotated with red pen, false, omission, manipulated. I made 12 copies, 1 for each guest, then I dressed with purpose. Navy suit, crisp white shirt, polished shoes. The same outfit I'd worn to Elena's funeral. Tonight was another kind of farewell. Farewell to weakness. Farewell to being their silent benefactor. At 6:30, I slipped the stacks into my briefcase and drove to Mapleton Hill. Their street glittered with festive lights. SUVs lined the curb, a parade of prosperity. Through the front windows, I saw Serena bustling in a red dress, wineglass in hand. Nathan leaned nervously near the fireplace. Cody held court at the head of the table, Evelyn glowing at his side. Their kingdom built on my wallet. I parked across the street and checked my watch. 6:45, perfect. Dinner would be served, wine poured, the guests captive. The front door, as expected, was unlocked. Serena loved to brag about how safe the neighborhood was, as if locks were only for people in lesser zip codes. I stepped inside. The warmth and smell of roasted meat hit me. From the dining room came laughter, the clink of glasses, Cody's booming voice. But darling, in our family we do things properly. Our family. I tightened my grip on the briefcase handle and entered. 12 heads turned at once. Forks froze in midair. Conversation died like a snuffed candle. Good evening, I said calmly, setting my briefcase on the marble sideboard. I hope you don't mind if I join your Christmas celebration. Serena nearly dropped her glass. Raphael, this is completely inappropriate. You need to leave. Actually, I said, unclipping the briefcase, I think your guests deserve to know who really paid for this evening. For this house. For all of this. A woman in pearls leaned forward, curious. What's he talking about? Serena's voice trembled. He's having some kind of episode. Nathan called someone, but I was already moving around the table, dropping a packet of papers in front of each guest. Here you'll find 5 years of bank statements. That's $174,000 in mortgage payments, plus a $47,000 down payment. Plus rénovation, fourniture, appliance, all of it from me. The room went silent except for the rustling of papers. Guests scanned the documents, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock to anger. This is outrageous, one man muttered. Serena, another woman said, staring at the receipts, why didn't you tell us about this? It's not what it looks like, Serena stammered. Raphael volunteered, he insisted. Actually, I cut in, placing the Gazette article on the table. This is what you told the media. Recognition rippled through the room. Guests whispered, recalling the story they'd read just days ago. My photo, the tale of abandonment at the airport. The weather was sunny, I said clearly. They weren't stranded. They were Serena's parents. Excluded me from Christmas dinner because my presence embarrassed them. And when I refused to be their chauffeur, they smeared me in the Gazette. Cody's face had drained to chalk. Evelyn's hands shook around her wineglass. A man in a blazer turned on them. You painted yourselves as victims. And this, he tapped the bank statements. This proves you've been bleeding him dry for years. Catherine, one of Evelyn's charity friends, frowned. Evelyn, please tell me this isn't true. Evelyn's voice cracked. It's complicated. No, I said. It's simple. They manipulated my son, turned him against me, and then tried to destroy my reputation when I stopped paying their bills. Nathan finally spoke, voice barely audible. Dad, I didn't know about the article. Your wife knew, I said. And her parents engineered it. The social ground shifted under the park's feet. Guests stared at them with disgust, whispers flying. Serena's composure crumbled. This is a family matter, she pleaded. It's gotten out of hand. No, I said firmly. It became public the moment you went to the press. You wanted a stage? Now you have one. I closed my briefcase, straightened my tie, and looked around the table. Enjoy your dinner. It's the last one I'll ever pay for. Then I walked out, leaving behind a room buzzing with betrayal, accusation, and the sound of a family's facade collapsing. It was the sweetest Christmas music I'd ever heard. The fallout arrived faster than I expected. 3 months later, on a crisp March morning, a certified letter slid into my mailbox. Heavy, official, the kind of envelope that carried weight. I signed for it on my porch, the air already smelling faintly of spring. Notice of default. Final demand for payment. I slit it open with my thumb and scanned the words. $9,000 in arrears. 14 days to pay or foreclosure proceedings would begin on Nathan and Serena's Mapleton Hill Palace. I set the letter beside my coffee, reading it the way you'd read news of a distant storm. Interesting. Unsettling. But not my problem anymore. For weeks, my phone had rung off the hook. Serena's number blocked after her first screeching voicemail. Cody and Evelyn, once so smug, now begging for a lifeline. Even Nathan had called repeatedly. I ignored them all, curious to see how long pride would hold out before desperation set in. The answer? 97 days. That Thursday evening, Nathan knocked on my door. He looked like someone who'd aged 10 years in 3 months. Dark circles under his eyes, suit wrinkled, the scent of stale anxiety clinging to him. Dad, he said softly when I opened the door. We need to talk. I stepped aside. He looked around my living room, eyes lingering on the new furniture. The fresh paint, the small but real improvements I'd finally been able to afford now. That my money wasn't being siphoned off into his household? Nice place, he muttered. It's what happens when you spend on yourself instead of funding someone else's lifestyle, I replied, motioning to the recliner across from mine. He sat stiffly like a guest instead of a son. Dad, I'm sorry. For Christmas. For the article. For how Serena. How we treated you. I said nothing, letting the silence do the work. I swear I didn't know about Cody planting that story, he went on. When I found out... He scrubbed his face with both hands. The things they said about you behind your back. About Mom's memory. My chest tightened at Elena's name. What things? Nathan's voice broke. That she knew her place better than you do. That she blended in. That she didn't make waves. My jaw clenched. He couldn't meet my eyes. I should have defended you, Dad. I should have stood up to them years ago. Yes, I said simply. You should have. The quiet stretched, broken only by the hum of my fridge and a neighbor's lawnmower in the distance. Everyday sounds ordinary, the kind of life I'd been locked out of for years. The house is in foreclosure, Nathan whispered finally. I know. We can't make the payments without... He stopped. The words dangled. Without my money, I finished for him. His shoulders sagged. We're going to lose everything, Dad. The house, Serena's respect, her parents' approval. I don't know what to do. You'll figure it out, I said, not unkindly. The same way I figured out how to spend Christmas alone, while you celebrated with people who thought I was beneath them. Tears pooled in his eyes. He wiped them roughly. I lost you, didn't I? I chose them and now I've lost you. I studied him for a long time. This man I'd raised, protected, sacrificed for. The boy who used to run into my arms at the sight of Christmas lights. You didn't lose me, I said finally. You gave me away. There's a difference, his voice cracked. Is there any chance you could forgive me? I forgave you months ago, I said, surprising myself with the truth. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It doesn't mean I'll start paying again. Forgiveness means this. If you want a relationship with me, you'll have to rebuild it from the ground up. With respect, with choices that honor family, not convenience. And the next time someone tries to shut me out, you'll remember who actually stands by you. He nodded slowly, absorbing it. The house? He asked, almost pleading. Isn't my problem, I said. You're a grown man. Sell it, rent an apartment. Get a job that covers your bills. Stop living above your means. Stop expecting other people to bleed so you can play host. Nathan exhaled, shaky but straighter than when he walked in. You're right about everything. I know. He stood, hands shoved in his pockets, and moved toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. Dad, for what it's worth, at Christmas dinner, when you stood up for yourself, I was proud. Ashamed too, angry but proud. Good, I said. Maybe there's hope for you yet. After he left, I poured myself a glass of good bourbon and stepped onto my back porch. The air was cool but soft, scented with new grass and possibility. Spring had come to Boulder. In 4 months, I'd be 63. Elena had been gone for 8 years. I'd wasted 5 of them as a doormat. That era was finished. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister, Vivi. Dinner Sunday. The kids want to show you their school projects. I smiled and typed back, wouldn't miss it because I'd learned something the hard way. Real family isn't the one that drains you dry while demanding more. Real family is the one that actually wants you at the table. The bourbon burned warm down my throat, and for the first time in years, the future looked as bright as I was willing to make it. The weeks after Nathan's visit moved quietly, almost peacefully. My days began with strong coffee and ended with a walk through the neighborhood, watching other families rake leaves or hang wind chimes. For the first time in a decade, my life was mine. But the parks weren't done with me. It started with whispers in town. At the grocery store, I overheard 2 women in the produce aisle. Did you read that Gazette piece? Leaving old folks stranded in a storm. Shameful. One clutched a head of lettuce as if it were evidence. Then, at the hardware store, a man I'd known for years, a former client, looked at me differently. Polite but distant. The article Cody had planted was working its poison. My reputation, built over 40 years, was now a question mark. I realized then, silence was no longer an option. I still had the folder. The evidence, my receipts and statements, neat as soldiers in their yellow highlighted rows. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed a platform as loud as theirs. So I started small. I visited old clients, families I'd helped remodel kitchens, repair roofs, build additions. I brought photos, contracts, proof of my work. You know me, I told them. You know who I am. Don't believe everything printed in the Gazette. Most nodded, reassured. A few hugged me. Word of mouth would spread. But it wasn't just about clearing my name. I wanted the parks exposed. One chilly Saturday, I stopped by my sister Vivi's house in Santa Fe. She greeted me with warm tortillas and questions I knew were coming. Rafa, she said, sliding a plate toward me, why didn't you tell me sooner? All these years. All that money? Because I thought I was helping family, I admitted. Turns out I was feeding parasites. Her eyes softened, but her tone was sharp. So what's next? You can't just sit back while they drag you through the mud. I won't, I said. And I meant it. That night after dinner, I sat in Vivi's den with my laptop glowing in the dark. I drafted a letter, no, a statement, to the Boulder Gazette, to the Front Range Business Association, to anyone Cody considered an ally. It began simply, my name is Rafael Ortiz. For 5 years, I contributed over $250,000 to my son and daughter-in-law's household. Mortgage payments, renovations, utilities. I did this quietly, without recognition, out of love for my family. In return, I was excluded from Christmas, insulted for my background and vilified in your newspaper. Here are the facts. I attached the bank records, the receipts, screenshots of Serena's posts flaunting luxuries during months I paid their bills. Even the article itself annotated line by line in red ink. Before I hit send, I hesitated. This wasn't just self-defense. It was war. Once this went public, there was no going back. Then I remembered Serena's words, "You're too weak to be my rival." I clicked send. The response was swift. 2 days later, the Gazette called. Patricia Monroe herself. "Mr. Ortiz, we've received your email. This is substantial?" "It's the truth," I said flatly. "We'd like to meet. Clarify a few things." "No need," I replied. "I don't trust your paper to tell my story." "But your readers will get the documents another way," she exhaled, frustrated. "Mr. Ortiz, if you go public without context, it'll look like revenge." I almost laughed. "It is revenge. Revenge and justice," I hung up. That Friday, I hand-delivered packets to 12 people. Not strangers this time, Cody's world. Members of his golf club, leaders of the business association. Women from Evelyn's charity luncheons. Each packet contained the truth. My financial support, their deceit, the article's lies. I didn't stay to argue. I just handed them over and said, "Read carefully." By Monday, the park's phones must have been ringing off the hook because mine sure was. Serena called from a blocked number, shrieking about betrayal. Cody's voice left 2 voicemails, both threats disguised as legal warnings. Evelyn sent an email dripping with venom about family loyalty. I ignored them all. A week later, at the farmer's market, a woman I vaguely recognized approached me. "Elegant pearl earrings, the kind Evelyn adored. You're Raphael?" She asked. "Yes, I read your documents. I want you to know, I believe you. And I'm sorry for how they treated you." She pressed my hand briefly and moved on, but her words stayed with me. It was starting. Their social facade was cracking. That night I poured a glass of bourbon and stood by my window, watching the lights of Boulder twinkle. The Parks wanted to ruin me. Instead, they'd lit a fire under a man who knew how to fight smart. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, I felt certain of the outcome, because I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was dismantling their empire, brick by brick. The first real tremor in their foundation came on a Tuesday morning. I was sipping coffee when my neighbor Frank, retired firefighter, loud as a storm, knocked on my door. "Rafa," he said, stepping in without waiting, "you won't believe this. Cody Parks got booted from the Front Range Business Association." I blinked. "Booted? Why?" Frank grinned like a man relishing gossip. "Word's out. Folks read your packet. They didn't like what they saw. Treasurer of the association, using his son-in-law's father as a cash machine, and then planting a fake storm story in the Gazette. Bad optics, man. Real bad." I set my mug down slowly. The tremors had become cracks. By Thursday, Evelyn cancelled her weekly charity luncheon for personal reasons. A polite way of saying people no longer wanted to be seen at her table. And Serena. Her Facebook turned eerily quiet. No photos of wine glasses clinking. No holiday recipes, no selfies in designer coats. Just silence. The proud hostess suddenly had nothing to show off, but they weren't giving up quietly. One evening, just as I was pulling a casserole from the oven, there came another pounding at my door. I opened it to find Serena herself, cheeks flushed, eyes sharp. "You've destroyed us," she hissed. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I held the doorframe, calm. "No, Serena. You destroyed yourselves. I just let people see it. You think you've won. My parents have connections you don't even know about. They'll sue. They'll ruin you." I tilted my head. "Sue me with what? Bank statements? Receipts? Your own posts bragging about the granite counters I paid for? Please, I dare you." Her jaw clenched. For once, she had no comeback. "Go home, Serena," I said quietly. "Face the life you built, without my money holding it up." She left in silence, her heels clicking on the porch like a retreating soldier. Still, I knew Cody wouldn't take this lying down. The man was too proud, too entrenched. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, another article appeared in the Gazette. This one less direct, more subtle. A piece about the dangers of mixing family and finances. No names mentioned, but the shade was obvious. Phrases like older benefactors and unstable retirees dripped with his hand. But something was different this time. The comments section. Dozens of locals chimed in, not against me, but against them. I heard about this. The Ortiz man supported them for years. Typical entitled family living off someone else. Sounds like the Parks are the unstable ones. The tide had turned. Meanwhile, my own life was blooming in ways I hadn't expected. My sister Vivi invited me down to Santa Fe almost every weekend. Her kids, my nieces and nephews, treated me like the grandfather they wished they had. One Saturday, I helped them build a treehouse. At the top, wind whipping our faces, one of them said, "Uncle Rafa, you're the strongest man I know." It nearly broke me. For years I'd been weak, silent, drained. But to them, I was strength itself. That night I stood on Vivi's porch watching the desert stars. I realized I wasn't just getting revenge. I was reclaiming family, the kind that wanted me around, not just my wallet. But the Parks' unraveling wasn't finished. By April, foreclosure notices were taped to their front door. I drove past once, slow, quiet, almost guilty. Their manicured lawn was browning. Their fancy SUV was gone, sold or repossessed. The glow that once radiated from their Mapleton Hill mansion had dimmed to a hollow shell. And Nathan? He texted me one night. Just 3 words, "I need you." I didn't reply because for once, he didn't need my money. He needed his father. And that, finally, was something I might be willing to give, but only if he proved he deserved it. The war had taken months. It had stripped away illusions, destroyed facades, exposed lies. But sitting there on my porch, bourbon in hand, I knew one thing with certainty. I hadn't just survived it, I'd won, and justice, real, hard-earned justice, had never tasted sweeter. The foreclosure hit the local news like a thunderclap. Mapleton Hill couple loses. Home in financial collapse. The headline was tucked onto page 5 of the Gazette, but people noticed. Everyone in Boulder knew the Parks. Their galas, their charity boards, their air of superiority. To see their empire crumble was like watching the mighty fall in real time. I read the article with my morning coffee, a wry smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. The story was short on details, long on euphemisms, unexpected financial hardship, unforeseen obligations, private family matter. Not a word about me. But the silence itself screamed truth. The very people who had painted me as unstable were now exposed as bankrupt frauds. A week later, Nathan showed up again. This time he looked worse, shirt untucked, stubble on his jaw, a man unraveling. "Dad," he said, voice raw, "we had to move into an apartment. Serena's furious. Her parents won't even take our calls. They're saying we humiliated them and she's talking about leaving me." I poured him a glass of water, set it on the table. "Sit down." He did, slumping like a deflated balloon. "I don't know what to do." "I've lost everything." "No," I corrected gently. "You lost a house. You lost a false image, but you still have a life. Had a chance to build something real if you want it." His eyes welled. "Dad, I'm sorry." "I see it now. All those years. You gave everything and I treated you like a burden." "Apologies are a start," I said. "But words mean nothing without change. You need to decide what kind of man you're going to be." Over the next few weeks, Nathan came around more often. Not for money, he knew better now, but for advice. He asked about budgeting, about work, about repairing trust. One night he admitted, "I don't even know who I am without Serena telling me what to do." "You're my son," I said. "And you're Elena's son." That's enough to start with. For the first time in years, I saw a flicker of the boy I used to know, the one who'd run through the yard barefoot, laughing, chasing fireflies. Maybe he wasn't lost forever. Meanwhile, word of my stand against the Parks spread beyond Boulder. Old clients called to say they respected me even more now. A contractor friend invited me to speak at a local business forum. "Tell them how you handled it," he urged. "People need to hear it." At first I hesitated, but then I thought of Serena's words. "You're too weak to be my rival." So I agreed. The night of the forum, I stood at a podium in front of 50 small business owners. My hands trembled at first, but once I began, the words flowed like they'd been waiting years to be spoken. "I let myself be used," I said, "by people who thought money meant power, and power meant control. But I learned something. Boundaries are power, truth is power, and dignity is power. If you don't guard them, people will take them. And they'll keep taking until you have nothing left." When I finished, the applause wasn't thunderous, but it was steady, sincere. And I realized something. My story wasn't just survival. It was a warning. And maybe even a guide. That night, as I walked to my truck under the clear Colorado stars, I felt Elena with me. Her quiet strength, her steady hand. I whispered into the dark, "I finally stood up, mi amor." The breeze carried the scent of pine and promise, and for the first time in years I felt truly free. But freedom had a price, because even as I rebuilt my life, the Parks weren't finished trying to claw back their reputation, and I knew deep down that the next round was coming, soon. The next round came just as I expected. It was early May when a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. I signed for it at the door, recognizing the return address before I even opened it. A downtown law firm with a reputation for sharp suits and sharper threats. Inside was a cease and desist letter. The Parks, it claimed, were victims of defamation caused by my malicious distribution of private financial documents. They demanded I retract my statements, issue a public apology and pay damages, or face legal action. I laughed out loud. A dry, humorless laugh, but still a laugh. They were drowning. And instead of learning to swim, they wanted to pull me under with them. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat at my desk, and began drafting my response. It was short, direct, and devastating. To whom it may concern, any financial documents I distributed contained only my own banking records, my own transfers, my own receipts. These are not private to the Parks, but private to me. As for defamation, truth is the strongest defense. I have every transaction recorded, every bill of sale, every photo, and every word in the Gazette article that smeared me. If your clients wish to pursue this in court, I welcome the chance to put them under oath. Please advise them to tread carefully. Discovery is a hungry beast. Respectfully, Rafael Ortiz. I mailed it back the next morning. And then silence. But silence didn't mean surrender. 2 weeks later, I was at the farmer's market again when a woman stopped me by the honey stand. "You're Ortiz, aren't you?" she asked, lowering her sunglasses. "The one who exposed the Parks?" "I suppose I am," I said cautiously. She smiled. "Good for you. Those people acted like royalty around here for too long." She leaned closer. "And between us, you're not the only one they took advantage of." That piqued my interest. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "Another time. Just know you're not alone." And then she walked away, leaving me with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, Nathan kept showing up. Each time he looked a little less broken, a little more like himself. He found steady work at a construction firm, not glamorous but honest. One evening over dinner at Vivi's house, he admitted, "I'm starting to see what Mom always meant about family. It's not who you share blood with, it's who shows up." I nodded, pride swelling despite myself. "Took you long enough to learn it." "I wish I'd learned sooner," he said softly, "before I lost so much." By June, the Parks' downfall was complete. Their house was auctioned. Cody disappeared from the golf club roster. Evelyn stopped showing up at charity events. Serena filed for divorce. Word spread quickly in a town like Boulder. Nathan told me the details one night, sitting on my porch with a beer. She said I wasn't the man she married. I told her she was right. That man's gone. He took a long sip. And good riddance. For the first time, I saw steel in his spine, a glimpse of a man who could stand on his own 2 feet. But even with their empire in ruins, the Parks hadn't played their final card. I learned that in late June, when Patricia Monroe, the Gazette editor, called me out of the blue. "Mr. Ortiz," she said carefully, "we're running a follow-up piece about financial abuse, about the ways families exploit each other. Would you be willing to speak on the record?" I hesitated. My story was already local gossip. Did I want it in print again? Did I want my name tied to this mess forever? But then I remembered every insult, every slight, every Christmas I'd spent alone. "Yes," I said, "but on one condition. You print the truth, all of it." 2 weeks later, the article hit. "The Cost of Family, How One Man Funded a Lifestyle Until It Broke Him." This time, my voice was clear. The bank statements, the receipts, the timeline of payments, the exclusion, the smear campaign, all laid out for readers to see, and the public's reaction. Sympathy, outrage, support. For every whisper that once branded me unstable, a new chorus rose calling me resilient. The Parks' names, meanwhile, became synonymous with greed. That night, sitting by my fireplace, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Because for once, the story wasn't theirs to twist. It was mine. Summer rolled into Boulder with long evenings and the smell of grilling meat drifting across backyards. For the first time in years, I didn't dread the season. No late-night calls begging for help with the mortgage. No silent dinners spent staring at bills I couldn't pay. I was free, and yet freedom has a strange quiet to it. After decades of being pulled in every direction, the silence can feel like a weight. Some nights I sat on the porch with a bourbon and wondered who I was without the constant drain of obligation. The answer came slowly, in small things. I planted tomatoes in Vivi's backyard with her kids. I joined Frank, my firefighter neighbor, for morning walks. I even dusted off my old guitar, fingers clumsy but eager. Life wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about living. Nathan's transformation surprised me most. By July, he'd settled into his new job at the construction firm. The pay wasn't glamorous, but the work was steady. He came over one evening in a clean work shirt, smelling of sawdust and sweat. For the first time in years, he looked like a man proud of himself. "Dad," he said, handing me a six-pack, "I wanted to thank you. Not for the money, God knows I don't deserve that. For giving me a second chance." I raised an eyebrow. "A second chance at what?" "At being your son." The words caught me off guard. My throat tightened. "Don't waste it, Nathan." "I won't," he promised, and for once I believed him, but the Parks, they weren't done clawing at what little reputation they had left. In August, I heard Cody tried to join another business association in Denver. Rumor had it, his application was quietly rejected. Evelyn attempted to start a new charity circle, but only 2 people showed up to her launch luncheon. The rest of the town had moved on, or worse, whispered behind their backs. Serena, freshly divorced, fled Boulder altogether. Last I heard, she was renting a condo in Scottsdale, posting filtered photos on Instagram like nothing had changed. But the comments told a different story. Fewer likes, fewer friends. Silence where applause used to be. Their empire was dust. One evening, as September crept in, Nathan and I sat on my porch, watching the sun dip behind the flat irons. He sipped his beer, quiet for a long time before speaking. "You know," he said, "I used to think strength meant having the biggest house, the best car, the fanciest dinners. Serena drilled that into me, but now, watching you stand up to them, I realize strength is saying no. Strength is drawing the line." I nodded slowly. "Strength is knowing your worth, son, and not letting anyone take it from you." He turned to me, eyes steady. "I want to rebuild with you, Dad. I know it won't be easy, but I'm ready to put in the work." It wasn't everything, but it was enough. As fall settled over Boulder, I felt the last of the bitterness lift from my chest. The Parks had tried to ruin me. Instead, they ruined themselves. And in their downfall, I found something I hadn't expected. Not just revenge, not just justice, but renewal. The life they tried to drain from me was flowing back stronger than before, and this time, I wasn't giving it away to anyone who didn't deserve it. Winter returned to Boulder, 1 year after it all began. The air was sharp, the streets glittering with Christmas lights, families bustling in and out of warm houses. I stood at my window watching, remembering the December when Nathan told me I wasn't welcome, how far we had come. This year there was no tension, no waiting for the phone to buzz with demands. Instead, my sister Vivi was already planning a family feast in Santa Fe. Tamales, pozole, and enough laughter to shake the walls, she'd promised. And I knew she meant it. But the best surprise came from Nathan. A week before Christmas, he showed up at my door with a simple wreath in his hands. No fancy bows, no glitter, just evergreen and pine cones. "Thought your place could use a little Christmas," he said, almost shy. I took it from him, fingers brushing the rough twine. "Shape's perfect. Dad," his voice caught. Would you come spend Christmas with me? It won't be like before. No big house. No Parks, just me. I want to start over." I studied him. The lines on his face were deeper now, the arrogance gone. What remained was humility and something stronger. "Resolve, are you sure?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "More sure than I've ever been." Christmas morning found us in his modest apartment. The tree was small, half the ornaments mismatched. We ate pancakes off chipped plates, laughed at old stories, and for the first time in years I felt no sting in my chest, because this time I wasn't there as a wallet. I was there as a father, and Nathan finally was there as a son. As we sat sipping coffee, he said, "You know, Dad, I lost everything I thought mattered, but it gave me the one thing I really needed. You. I reached across the table, gripped his shoulder. Then maybe it wasn't a loss at all. We sat there in silence, the tree lights glowing softly, the quiet hum of a new beginning wrapping around us like a blanket. Looking back, the Parks thought they had destroyed me. They thought they'd turned me into the villain, the outcast, the weak man too small for their world. But in truth, they gave me a gift. They forced me to draw a line, to reclaim my dignity, to rediscover my worth, and in the ashes of their arrogance, I found something stronger than revenge. I found peace. That night, back home, I poured a glass of bourbon and stood on my porch, watching the stars over the Rockies. I raised my glass to the sky, to Elena, I whispered. I finally learned. The wind carried the scent of pine, the sound of distant laughter, and for the first time in years, my heart was light, because justice had been served, family had been restored, and the future, my future, was finally mine. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's freedom.